You're listening to the Spring Break Money Coach School, a special series from the Wander Wealthy podcast. My name is Tess. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I am so excited to welcome you to the Spring Break Money Coach School. This is a series of 13 episodes, which have been the most listened to and highly valued episodes from the Wander Wealthy podcast over the last 2 years. I have taken the time to make sure to put these episodes in a specific order for anyone who is either looking to refresh yourself on what's important about building a life-changing money coaching program, selling, marketing, and getting your money coaching business off of the ground and booked out, or for those who are brand new to the show and looking for some guidance. These are the episodes to listen to, and I would highly recommend, if you are not at the very first Spring Break Money Coach School episode in the series, scroll back on your podcast player and go start with the one that is sharing my story. That is the first one to tune into so you can see how it all goes down, what I'm all about, and what I bring as a money coach to this space. Now, while you're listening, just a little announcement. I am going on maternity leave in the fall of 2022, which means the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is not open for enrollment. So even if you hear me announce that in one of these episodes, I just want to let you know that we are not open for enrollment, but what you can do is get on the wait list for 2023 enrollment periods. In the meantime, I would definitely suggest for you to check out the pricing formula, which you can find at wanderwealthy.com/pricing. If you're struggling with pricing your services and not really sure what a package would look like and how you would price a coaching package, that is the guidebook, calculator, and little mini trainings that you need to get that all sorted out. Another way that we can quote unquote work together with a wink is by you getting access to the client attraction content matrix. This is a quick mini course that's going to teach you my secret sauce to creating content that converts. Whether you want to create TikToks or Instagram Reels, stories, posts, videos, even for YouTube or podcast episodes, even blog posts, this matrix is going to change your business. Because when it comes to creating content, you need to make sure that you're creating content that speaks to your audience and then gets them to turn into paying clients. So you can get access to that by heading to wanderwealthy.com/content. And if you want a very special deal, get your hands on the pricing formula first, and you might just get a very special discount to the matrix, as well as a special treat in between that teaches you all about my simple sales strategy. So wanderwealthy.com/pricing to get your hands on the formula, and wanderwealthy.com/content if you're just interested in the content matrix. And those are some ways that we can continue to work together over the next handful of months. Thanks again for tuning in to the Spring Break Money Coach School. Now, without further ado, let's get into this week's episode for this amazing series. Welcome to the Wander Wealthy podcast. And for those of you who have been tuning in for quite some time, welcome back to you. My name is Tess. I am the host of this show, founder of Wander Wealthy, and financial coach turned business coach for all of the aspiring, new, and even current money coaches, wealth coaches, and financial coaches of the world. I am so excited that you're here. We have a highly requested episode for you today. I'm going to be sharing how to structure a successful financial coaching call. And as a little treat, I have been working behind the scenes on something very special for you all of you Wander Wealthy tuner-inners. I actually have a guide that is available for you for free to download. If you head to wanderwealthy.com/guide, then you're actually going to get my entire step-by-step guidebook that walks you through the outlines of, or I guess like it's a structural outline, so to speak, of successful money coaching sessions. And what I'm introducing you to is kind of these 3 different types of sessions, so to speak. I've kind of come to determine them as that. There's the kickoff session or the intro session where you're really getting everything out on the table. For me personally, when I'm money coaching, that session is about 90 minutes long because we have to go through all of the details, all of the data, and really just have some opportunities to talk and connect as well. Then I walk you through the structure of the intermediary sessions. I didn't really know what to call them, so I called them that. Hopefully it works. And this can obviously be, anywhere between 2 sessions to, I don't know how long. You could do it, 10, 20, however long you're coaching and working with a client. And then of course we have the final wrap-up session. So I walk you through the step-by-steps of how you can kind of structure those calls so that you don't have to spend hours preparing and wondering, how am I going to fill the time and what are we going to talk about? I got it there for you. So this obviously coincides with what I teach inside of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, which is to create your coaching framework that you help take your clients through as you're working with them. So it's a kind of like this perfect add-on and addition. And I want you to get your hands on it. So head to wanderwealthy.com/guide and you can download your free guide, step-by-step guide to structure a successful money coaching session, no matter what session it is. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of what that is today. And I think it'll actually be really good for you to have the guide for you to reference, obviously, as you are working with clients and moving through your business. And maybe even you're not working with clients yet, but you want to know, like, what would that even look like and how will I prepare? But also I think you can refer to this episode in the future or just get what you need here and now to hear me kind of walk through some of what I talk about in sessions and how I structure those sessions. And I can give you a little bit more color into kind of what those sessions look like with me, at least. And I'm going to walk you through the intermediary session. I don't know. That's such a weird word, but that's what I called it in the guide, I'm pretty sure. So we're going to go with that. Intermediate coaching session. And you know what? There's not a good name for it, but just stick with me. It's all the sessions that are between the beginning and the end, So first and foremost, I want to mention that every session is going to look a little bit different, but I think what's really helpful is to have kind of a way that you get into each and every session and then a way that you wrap it up so that at least you know how to start it off and how to end it. This was one of the best tips that was provided to me before I even went into coaching, but I was wanting to start creating videos. And I did this challenge, and the person hosting the challenge was saying, like, you need a way to end your video, because otherwise you get to the end of it and you're just like, okay, so this is awkward. What do we do now? So having kind of a way that you kick off your sessions and a wrap up is really, really helpful. I do something and this is more specific for when I'm working with money coaches. I do something that some of you might seem is a little weird. I don't know. But we do like a breathing and a grounding and just like a centering exercise where we just take a moment to sit and breathe and kind of quiet our mind and settle our nervous system. Because so often when you get into the coaching session, especially if you came from like a really hectic, work environment or household, and now you're like all frazzled and you're coming to the coaching session, as the coach, I want to help you kind of get centered and get focused for the next hour or 30 minutes that we're going to be together. So I love to kick things off with a little bit of a grounding exercise. But what you'll see in the guide is where I talk about rapport. And this rapport is really, really important when it comes to your coaching sessions and when it comes to working with clients in general, because in order for your clients to really continue to buy this process, right? They still need to buy into the process that you're selling them. They need to trust you, and people will trust people who they naturally like and connect with, and people like people who are like them. So building rapport is really important, just to use like the first couple of minutes to connect with your clients and just kind of get to like an even level. So as part of my rapport process, I also do a little bit of the grounding and centering. And, in the beginning, for for clients, it might seem a little weird, a little woo-woo, but I like to sprinkle in the woo with my coaching here and there. But by the end of it, they're always so appreciative of that. And then they usually take that and use the same exercise in their working life. They'll use it before they get on a sales call with a potential client, or they might even use it in their coaching sessions. And it's just a great way for my clients to get centered. So once we've covered that, and remember, these are the intermediate coaching sessions. So we've already met before. So this is like, nothing new. But once we covered that, I always want to not get too far ahead of myself, because I know I have an idea of what we're going to talk about because I have a framework for my coaching. And so I have an idea of what we're going to talk about. And I also have my clients submit to me information about what they've gotten done, what they didn't get done. And usually it's just checking in on what we had committed to the call prior. But things happen, especially in our financial lives. So always with my money coaching clients, I always kick things off with just saying, first of all, give me the updates. What's happened? What's new? Because I can't expect them to always email me or send me a text with every new thing that happened. But that's really important if we're going to be making a plan together, if we're going to be looking at their money and determining, where we're going next. We need to know if anything has changed in the meantime. So the very next thing I do, or kind of like how I kick things off after we really level with each other, is just to say, all right, what's happened in the last week or month or however long it's been, and give me the update so I can make note of that just in case I'm going to have to change what I plan to have a discussion about during this call. From there, we review, and accountability is a big piece of my coaching with my clients. I think it's one of the keys and the most important keys to success. And that's really what a coach is there to do, is to help you kind of identify your path and then set goals along that path, but then hold you accountable to stick to the path and not kind of veer off. And so with that, then we go into their accountability. First and foremost, we do a little bit of celebration. What do we accomplish since we last chatted? What got done? What are the updates around that? How did that go? How did that feel? And I really just open it up and let them share with me. And I think something that's really powerful when you are a coach to remember is like, you want your clients to be talking far more than you are. A lot of people think that, and this is interesting because I said earlier, I'm going to give you the outline of the session so that you know how you're going to fill the time, but really it's not your job to fill the time, right? You're holding a container for your clients. Let's say it's an hour-long session. You're holding that hour of space, but it's really, the job of the client to show up, obviously, and then your job is to ask questions and get them talking, to get them exploring, what went right, what went wrong, what do they need to know, what are they missing, to get them to kind of uncover that, to work through that. And then if they have questions, of course, they can ask, and then you're there for them. But a lot of times when you're a coach, and what I teach the coaches in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, is to really have that framework so that you can actually provide education outside of your coaching sessions. So your coaching sessions can really be focused on change work and looking at that behavior and looking at the strategies and the processes and getting your clients set up and then helping them again stay on track. So coaching sessions are much more about the support. And if you can get that support in 30 minutes, even though you have a 1-hour container for them every week or 2 weeks or once a month, that's okay. It's totally okay. So if they don't have a lot that they want to discuss, or that they, have questions about, or that they need to add, then as long as they know what they need to do next, you don't have to worry about filling just the entire time just because they're not buying your time. Remember that. So anyway, we review what they got done, and then we look at what didn't get done. So if they did commit to something, but they weren't able to get to it, we really dig into that. I think that's super important as a money coach because, there's a lot of especially early on, we set these like big, outrageous goals, and then we can get really discouraged when we don't get to them. But, if life gets in the way, or if something happens, or if we're just not quite used to following a budget or automating our savings, then things can trip us up, or we just sometimes fall off track. And so really understanding that and digging into that, and then helping your client really figure out what's going on there? And is there something deeper that we need to tweak first before we try to make whatever change it is that they're trying to make, but haven't been able to get to since we last chatted? All right. So when we talk about what didn't get done, we're also exploring, okay, this didn't get done. So what got in the way? And I think that's a really important question. So I was talking about, asking questions and how important asking questions are as a coach earlier. And I wanted to share this piece. When people don't do something, when they don't do what they say they're going to do, instead of asking why, ask what. What got in the way? What happened? And oftentimes you'll get a much different answer than if you ask why. Because why-based questions kind of open it up. And I don't want to say for excuses, but that's, a lot of times that's what they are. And not saying like excuses are always bad. Sometimes excuses are valid, but it opens it up for them to kind of try to explain around it and make excuses for certain things, or make stories, if we want to say stories, instead of really looking at like what actually, tangibly, what got in the way, what stood in the way of you being able to accomplish this. So that I think that's such a more effective question to ask. So you can go straight to the source and tweak it and correct it and work on that thing. So asking what got in the way instead of why is really, really good. Some other, just like while we're on the topic and we're talking about coaching sessions, I think some other questions that are good, instead of asking if someone has like a goal that they want to achieve, instead of asking, okay, why do you want to achieve that goal? Ask for what purpose, right? Again, it changes the question and you're going to get a much different answer. All right. So from there, I go into reviewing what they learned over the last week or 2 weeks or 1 month. So like I said, I like to provide my coaching with a framework. And usually within that framework, not only does that provide me the understanding of where we're going to be at in terms of our, relationship together, and, what are the stepping stones we're trying to hit, and what means we're at the next level. It provides that awareness for your client as well. But you can also create educational materials that help drive that framework and help kind of create that structure. And so I deliver educational materials to my clients, which then means on our coaching call, we are going to review what they learned. I'm going to see if they have any questions, if there were any gaps in the material, so that I can provide the personalization that they're looking for in the coaching calls. So we go through and we review that. And then typically, along with those educational materials, there is homework. So sometimes the homework corresponds with the accountability, and therefore, the what did you get done typically has to do with their homework. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's not like the top priority thing that they want to be held accountable to, but it's still something that they are going to accomplish. So in that moment, we'll review their homework, or we'll actually review their homework that maybe they were held accountable for, but this is the opportunity to do it. This is where we're really going to dive in and look through kind of what they were, prescribed to do for the time being. Okay. From there, I like to open it up for Q&A. So this is where I just, basically we've kind of wrapped up what we need to review and, discuss on the front end. So now we're really just saying, okay, now is your time to ask any questions. Is there anything you're still confused about? Is there anything that has come up for you in the last week that you want to discuss? And I like to create a safe space and allow the floor to be open. I find, especially in money coaching, that money touches a lot of different areas of our lives. So sometimes your client needs to open up and talk about something that maybe not has anything to do with, the nuts and bolts of their budget, but they want to talk about a relationship that they're in that is creating or putting them in a position to spend much more or something along those lines. Now, you want to be careful here, obviously, but I think it's great to open up the space for them and hold the space for them to have that discussion, and then just ask them questions to help them come to their own conclusions about the decisions they're going to make, or maybe it's just talking about it that makes them feel better, and then they're ready to move forward. But of course, there could be other questions they have where maybe they're curious about something that you're not necessarily planning to cover in your coaching relationship, like along your coaching framework, but it's something that you absolutely are more than willing to answer and talk about. And it could be, any money topic that just doesn't really have anything to do with the goals that they're currently facing and working on. That's a great time for them to ask those questions. And obviously, if you feel that you're capable of answering the question and providing them with some insight or education, then there you have it. You can do it during this period of the call. From there, we get into kind of wrapping up the call. So like I said, you always want to have a kickoff kind of plan and then a wrap up plan. And honestly, your kickoff plan does not have to be like a little breathing exercise. I'm serious. It does not. It can honestly just be, the same kind of, hey, how's it going? What have you been up to? How are things over in X city that you're in? Tell me about your family. How are things there? You can really just kind of meet eye to eye in other areas. And then same thing, obviously not the same thing. We're not really worried about building rapport at the end of the call because we've been doing that this whole time. But you want to have kind of a similar routine for the end of the call. And I think what this does is it really helps your client to feel comfortable in the calls with you going forward. Obviously, the first one, they have no idea what's going on, and you're kind of setting that stage. But once you get into a rhythm and you're 2-3 calls in, now the client knows where they're at, even during the call. They know, okay, this is the rhythm, this is the structure. And something that I do often say in my coaching calls, especially the first ones, is I'll say, all right, I have kind of a flow that I like to follow for these calls. I have a structure that I like to follow. But first of all, we're going to go ahead and start with some breathing and do a little bit of a breathing exercise. So that's kind of how I kick off my calls. Sometimes we do a little rapport building and then I dive into okay, we're going to get into the structure of the call now. So same thing when you're wrapping up the call, there's a rhythm that you can start to get in where it's very obvious that you're wrapping things up. And I think it also allows the client to go, okay, well, if I have questions, I should ask them now because we are wrapping things up. So that's a good thing. And I think that also goes to show that then there's no reason to just stay on a call if you're done and you've accomplished everything you need to accomplish and you're getting the client set up to move forward, in less time than what is on the calendar. And it also kind of puts the responsibility on the client because obviously you're not trying to just war off your responsibility, but there's no responsibility to stay on the call just for the sake of staying on the call. So when you have kind of that wrap up, it allows that expectation. And now the client, if they do feel like, oh, the time is super precious and I need to use all of it, that's on them. Then it's time for them to expand and continue to ask those questions and reach for more. But more isn't always more. So do they need it? No. But if they want to use it, yeah, you have the time carved out. You can obviously give it to them. Okay. So as we go into the wrap up part of the call, what I love to discuss is just talk about the new homework moving forward. So I get the client set up. I walk them through anything that they need to be doing, but obviously they're going to be actually doing and implementing in their own time. Then what I like to do is get a self-commitment. So this is really important because oftentimes, if you think about school, you're assigned things and we don't want coaching to feel like school. Coaching is very much a done with process and it's for the client's benefit. The client, they signed up because they want to accomplish something. And so it shouldn't feel like school. And so one good thing is if you wanted to, you could just not call it homework. That's your first step so that it doesn't have to feel like school. But also, we want the client to personally commit to actually doing the work and taking ownership of its completion. So when you can get a self-commitment, you can get one verbally or even written. in order to like set it in stone. But really, even when you work with the client and you have them come up with some of their own tasks that they want to accomplish or homework that they want to do, that's a way of really solidifying that self-commitment. So what I do is, we typically set 3 tasks or 3 pieces of homework or 3 things that they want to get done. And the client and I work together to come up with what those are. And then I will follow up with them and send them their 3 pieces of commitment. So they have that front and center until the next time we're jumping on a call together. And then that's what we review at the front end of the call. From there, we round out with, okay, when are we going to be speaking next? And we talk about that accountability schedule. So with the self-commitment and the homework, we define, here's the due date of the homework. This is when I'm going to expect to hear from you, especially if it's between coaching sessions. That way they know, okay, I need to communicate with Tess and let her know that this is what I'm going to be providing her and, expecting to also hear back to get the feedback and any extra things from her when I submit my homework. But in addition to that, we're obviously going to talk about, okay, when is the next call? So accountability schedule is really looking at, homework and when are they going to be checking in and letting me know that they've, accomplished the tasks or gotten the homework done, and then booking the next call. This is a really important piece that I think a lot of people forget about because it's at the end of the session. But especially if you don't have a set schedule with a client, which if I'm not talking to a client on a weekly basis, I don't typically have all the calls booked out. So instead, I always have to make sure that at the end of our call, we're booking the next call. That is super important so that we don't have to constantly be going back and forth in email trying to find the best date so that they don't just fall off the face of the planet. We get a commitment for the next time we're going to be talking right there on the call, and I'll send them the calendar invite. And then from there, we just kind of wrap things up. So I'll let them know, all right, let's review your accountability. These are what I'm going to expect to hear from you in regards to the accountability. And this is when our next call is, and I will talk to you then. And then we say goodbye and have a great day. So that is the full Monty. That is the full walkthrough of what a coaching call can look like. And of course, sometimes you miss things. Sometimes you have to skip through things. Sometimes you're going a little long and you need to wrap things up a little bit quicker. And sometimes it goes in a different order, and that is okay. It doesn't obviously have to be this exact order or these exact things. It really might depend on your program. It might depend on your way of coaching. It might depend on your clients and the individual client at that time. It can be really, it can be flexible, and that's the good thing. But I think having some sort of structure, and I hope that you being able to see the structure that I use and that I kind of teach the coaches in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, what they can use for their clients. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of what it could look like, especially if you haven't coached someone in the past, or if you're just curious, what do other people talk about on their coaching calls? No one, has taught me this, how to host a coaching call. So I'm super curious. Then here it is. So grab your guide, because you're going to want this in writing. You're going to want to see all of my examples and explanations of each of the kind of categories, or I guess steps that we take. I don't know, bullet points of the outline. But you're also going to want to see there's slight tweaks between the very first call and the final call. So you're going to want to check that out as well. So head to wanderwealthy.com/guide to download your coaching session guide. And I cannot wait for you to get your hands on it. It hopefully is going to just be a big game changer for you and help you feel so much more confident going into your upcoming coaching calls. So wanderwealthy.com/guide. If you want to check out the show notes of this week's episode, head to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 229. And until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.